Meet Phoenix. She was bred to be raced for gambling and prize money. Too timid to race, she was left in a paddock for over 2 years, with no chance to learn much about humans or other dogs. This lack of socialisation continued until she was rescued by Gumtree Greys, a community-run rescue group which operates in Victoria and Queensland. At first, Phoenix was extremely frightened of people, but a bit of kindness went a long way, and now she's found a loving and forever home. But Phoenix is one of the lucky few thanks to Gumtree Greys, one of about 30 community-run rescue groups across Australia. So how big is the job facing these volunteer groups when the dogs first arrive? For the very first time, a new national survey has allowed community-run greyhound rescue groups to have their say. The survey was done by the Coalition for the Protection of Greyhounds, or CPG. Fiona Chisholm is CPG's national spokesperson and has 2 rescue greyhounds of her own. She started adopting greyhounds over 10 years ago and volunteered for a rescue group before she joined CPG.
Sadly, we heard from 90% of the rescues that most greyhounds arrive in poor condition needing vet care. This puts tremendous financial pressure on the rescues and it's really unfair.
Greyhounds arrive at rescues with untreated fractures, some recent, some old. Recent fractures can be treated, and the greyhounds then have to spend time in a cast. Rehab then follows, usually while a dog is living with a foster carer. Most rescue groups can't afford kennels, so volunteers will take dogs into their own homes. Other injuries reported by rescue groups were broken and partially amputated tails. These types of injuries also require vet treatment.
One of the worst cases we heard about was in New South Wales, where one poor dog was surrendered to a rescue with her front leg frozen in 3 places. Sadly, the vets said that because it was in such a bad way that it needed to be amputated. Basically, the pathologist's report said that this dog would have been in severe pain for 2 years. Happily, because of the rescue, once the leg was amputated and she had rehab, she's doing great and she's happily rehomed, and tripod dogs, 3-legged dogs, can do really well.
Meanwhile, other untreated problems often seen by rescue groups include the eye disease pannus. This requires daily eye drops, and if left untreated, a dog can go blind. Greyhound rescue groups also said dogs' teeth were usually in bad condition. Here are some healthy teeth, and here's a typical ex-racing dog's teeth. Greyhound teeth are often bad due to neglect and a poor diet.
70% of rescues told us that many dogs arrive without basic grooming, and that's generally defined in the greyhound racing codes as trimmed toenails and a clean coat.
Here you can see examples of bad coat condition, and here's one greyhound when it first arrived at a rescue, and then its much improved coat after 2 months of better food and care at a community-run rescue. Meanwhile, let's get back to Phoenix, who was left in a paddock for over 2 years with no chance to learn about the wider world. CPG says this should never happen. This is because state racing codes require owners to socialise their dogs. This gets them ready for rehoming.
Most racing authorities do kennel inspections. When they do those, they could be doing socialisation checks. You know, they could be checking the standard things that racing greyhounds are supposed to be taught, like can they go up and down steps? How do they respond to a stranger? How do they react to another dog? How can they walk on different surfaces? These are all fundamental things that are important when dogs are tested by GAP. And when they don't pass, because they haven't been taught these things, they're euthanized, and it's not the dog's fault. Publicly available records show racing owners aren't penalised for failing to socialise their greyhounds. All of the welfare codes for greyhounds require socialisation, but it's not done and it's not checked. So what happens is when the greyhounds get to community rescues, it's the community rescue volunteers who have to pick up the pieces. That takes a lot of time, money and effort, and the public ends up paying for the socialisation through the donations they give the rescues. It's not fair, and it's completely unacceptable.
Despite state governments giving millions of taxpayer dollars to the greyhound industry, community rehoming is funded mainly by the public. These rescue groups have to rely on the kindness of strangers in order to help ex-racing greyhounds, while the racing industry gives its rehoming arm, called Greyhounds as Pets, or GAP, a ready-made budget.
This is terribly unfair. Community-run groups should be funded by state governments through taxes. And greyhounds that can't be placed in homes should be placed in sanctuaries. There simply aren't enough adopters for all the greyhounds bred by the greyhound racing industry.
Meanwhile, Gumtree Greys says CPG's new survey allowed rescues to speak anonymously as many choose not to comment publicly. They're worried dogs will be put down rather than surrendered to them for rehoming.
Some groups aren't allowed to comment by law because there are entities such as Greyhound Racing Victoria that will get the rescues to sign away their rights in exchange for funding for veterinary costs.
But the volunteer-run community rescue groups won't give up. They are dedicated members of the community, and they will continue to find loving homes for greyhounds. At the end of the day, they want to ensure ex-racing greyhounds are happy, healthy and homed. They believe greyhounds should be able to run for fun, not for profit.